Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Decaturish Download. I'm your host, Dano. I'm editor and publisher of Decaturish. My name's Dan Wisenhunt. Our guest today is the one and only George Chidi, the sage of Pine Lake. George, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. All is well. I mean, everything's on fire, but everything's fine.
I know your hair burned off. I mean, it was that bad.
Yeah, like no, what's worse is going to happen? They'll rain on me, and I'll get my hair wet or not.
Well, let me real quick walk viewers through what the Decaturish Download is. So, the Decaturish Download is a new streaming show and podcast. We air right here on our Facebook page and YouTube page every Thursday at 7 p.m. It is the spiritual successor to the Decatur Dish, which we aired on Atlanta News First Plus for 2 years. Many thanks to them for all the support that they've shown us. But this is going to be our regular weekly feature where we talk to news makers and discuss the local news and work with journalists in our community like George Chidi to tell you the stories about what's happening in DeKalb County. Real quick, I wanted to let people know that tonight's episode is brought to you by Gynecology and Obstetrics of DeKalb County, and we're going to learn a little bit more about them in just a minute. George, let's get into some of our top stories this week, shall we?
Let's.
Last week in DeKalb County, voters chose new leaders, and around the nation, really. The county saw particularly high turnout this year. Decaturish assistant editor Zoe Seiler just broke that story today. Turnout for the elections this year was about 31%. And on election day, we had 94,590 voters visit the polls. For comparison, in 2021, we had about 71,107 votes on election day. Or no, that was total rather. So we had quite a busy turnout this year, and we had some pretty interesting results both locally and nationally. Locally, the District 1 race between Katie Bell and Mark Arnold went to a recount. They're doing that recount right now. We sat in on some of that today. In the school board race here in Decatur, we had a write-in candidate challenge Hans Utz, who made everybody mad somehow before the election. And got himself a write-in challenger. Didn't count because the guy didn't qualify. And then in Stone Mountain, we had all of the incumbents get voted out. So, George, walk me through what you saw a couple of weeks ago on Election Day. What did you notice? What trends did you see?
So let's start with this. Like, some of this is a nationalized reaction to everything being on fire. The DeKalb County is predominantly Democrats, and that's who turned out to vote. And it's not just here in DeKalb County. Statewide, turnout was actually fairly robust. I think some of that had to do with a competitive public service commission race that was drawing a lot of attention, a lot more attention than anybody thought it would, because most of the time nobody cares about public service commission stuff. In the primaries, turnout was 3%. In a runoff, it was 1.5%. Although in that runoff, DeKalb County kind of determined who the victor was going to be. And so, but I think because of the protests that were going on with No King's Day rallies and the sort of drumbeat of news, people were already looking for a way to express themselves politically. And then we have all of these competitive local races going on in Decatur, in Stone Mountain, elsewhere. This isn't, I shouldn't, it's still surprising. It's still surprising because my instinct is an electorate that has been tuning out. And I am a news guy. You're a news guy. One news guy to another. There are a lot of people who want to go watch cartoons right now. I cannot tell you how glad I am if you are watching this, that you are watching this, and you're remaining engaged. We need you. But it's hard. And so I see that, and then I see this crazy turnout. I'm like, people are tuning out, but only so they can maintain their mental health. It isn't like they're not paying attention.
I feel like people have sort of made up their minds a little bit about what they're going to do. I mean, if you're undecided, To me, that's like peering into the mysteries of the universe as an undecided voter in this day and age. Like, how do you not have an opinion on this, one way or the other? On election day, the sentiment was very much a tired nation pries itself off the couch to go down to their local polling place to choose their election, choose their politicians. I got so many thoughts myself about that election result. The thing that I found most interesting, and I know we don't talk about national politics as much, but there it is somewhat relevant, is that I feel the electorate sent a pretty clear message on election day that they're not happy with the current. I mean, we elected 2 Democrats to statewide office in Georgia for the first time since 2006.
Yeah.
In a weird off year kind of election. So it's not normal times. And what I thought was interesting after all that, they elected a socialist in New York, for God's sake. They've elected all of these really left leaning candidates, and the Democrats followed that up by basically caving on the shutdown. They didn't get anything they wanted, sort of an empty promise of a vote. But it seems like the senators that were getting ready to retire decided to, cut bait and move on. What do you make of that? I was surprised by that the most.
So we've been having a sort of a robust discussion about this in the Guardian. And let me step back for a moment. Like, I am still fundamentally a local journalist here in DeKalb County. That will never change. I'm finding my Guardian service enlightening in a lot of ways. It's almost like a sabbatical away from all of this, because I could see how the national environment plays out at the local level and vice versa. We've been having a real conversation internally about what the heck happened there. And our sort of general consensus is Democrats caved in part because of who was starting to get hurt. It is one thing when you have SNAP recipients who honestly don't vote as a majority of their group because of poverty. Poor people don't vote as frequently as people with money. That's just how it is. It is one thing when the Democratic Party is pitting SNAP recipients against people who are in the Affordable Care Act donut hole. Because the folks who are on the Affordable Care Act actually vote or vote at a higher propensity. Even though those two numbers, the size of those two groups is roughly equivalent. Those ACA folks count for more. Well, people who get on airplanes count for more than the people who are in the ACA hole. They make more money. They're more spread out around the country. They're more likely to be swing voters. And suddenly you have an actual political problem. So it's not that these 8 caved. I fundamentally believe that leadership actually caved, but they don't want to be called on it. They realized that Schumer's leadership position might be vulnerable if he was seen to be one of the 8 voting for it. So in public, he says, no, this is a bad idea, while privately signing off on the 8 least most vulnerable Democrats in the caucus, and only 8 to go. Because if this was really a thing that was happening, it wouldn't have been exactly that number. There was an internal negotiation about who would fall on the grenade, and those were the ones that they said it was reasonable for them to do that.
So if you're just joining us, this is the Decaturish download. I had a bit of a technical oopsie. I forgot I'm not on Zoom and I'm on StreamYard. So we're doing this new show via StreamYard, which is really great, except for the fact that it's a tab on my browser. And I closed it out thinking I was doing Zoom, and I wasn't. I'm not doing Zoom, y'all. I'm doing StreamYard. So if I disappeared for a minute, but the good news is that the show kept rolling, so we're in good shape. I want to get your take really quick on Marjorie Taylor Greene, because I don't know what's happened to her. I don't know if she went and tripped LSD in the woods. I don't know if she got visited by 3 ghosts on Christmas Eve. I don't know, but she sounds like fundamentally like a different person than the person that we all know and love, the Marjorie Taylor Greene that we're all used to up in North Georgia. What has happened? What is going on with her?
So part of this, I believe, is she is preparing herself and her electorate for a run for president in 2028. Yeah. I mean, look, I mean, there it is. Like, I mean, you can say that. Those are words that were a complete sentence that came out of my mouth. Marjorie Taylor Greene will be a candidate for president in 2028. What do you do with that?
That's certainly a thing Marjorie Taylor Greene can do.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I could do that, but whether
But
that's
I
a good
actually think
idea or not.
it's more complicated than that. Like her sort of, at least a veneer of sanity is in part because, like, we are now at a point where we need to start asking who will be the next president of the United States. Like, the election was 1 year ago today, and Donald Trump is plainly a lame duck. And unless we have a political apocalypse and they shred the Constitution for real and we don't have an election in 2028, Donald Trump will not be president in 2029. And I think conservatives are looking around like, who gets to be the next banner holder for the contrarian, angry right? And so there's that. Some of this is Marjorie Taylor Greene is used to being the shouty outsider. She plays a role. And I think, look, if you want to understand Marjorie Taylor Greene, hear me here. If you've ever played like a multiplayer role-playing game, like, I don't know, like Overwatch or something like that, there's a role on a team for a tank. The tank's job is to take fire, to absorb damage that other people can't and survive it so that they're not shooting at other people. That's who Marjorie Taylor Greene is politically. She's a tank. She exists to jump up and down and wave her arms and say absolutely crazy things so that people will direct their fire toward her and not toward other people who are actually doing things that might be vulnerable. And she's played that role really well. The problem is she expected to be paid off for having done that for years with committee assignments and real authority in Washington now that they're in charge, and that's not happening. So she's defecting. Like, she's taking that skill and she's applying it in another direction, perhaps to run for president in 2028. But there's one other thing, and I'm sorry I'm being long-winded here, but there's one other thing. And I've been a news reporter for a long time. I used to be a news reporter in Eastern North Carolina in the district of Walter Jones. He was this legendary, cantankerous, contrarian Republican. He's famous for freedom fries. The idea, like during the Gulf War, where it changed the house restaurants like labeling of French fries and made them change it to freedom fries because the French weren't on board. Like that guy. A couple of years later, he turned really sharply against the Iraq War. And it was because his district has got a bunch of military people in it, and they were coming back wounded and weren't being taken care of, and their families were getting screwed. And because he was their congressman, he was looking at this and like, well, wait a minute, no, this was a terrible idea. It became one of the most outspoken opponents to the Iraq War that there was, to the day he died, which was only a few years ago. And he kept getting reelected in his district until the day he died. On some very basic level, I am wondering whether or not Marjorie Taylor Greene is having this moment, this, oh God, wait a minute, I'm starting to hear from my constituents on this thing with the healthcare stuff, and nope. And because she's a maverick, she gets to say things. Her district doesn't care. I've been in her district asking her constituents. They do. Marjorie Taylor Greene said this thing about healthcare, and it's really opposed to Donald Trump. And what do you think about that? Does that make you dislike Marjorie Taylor Greene more? And all of these very conservative people are like, no, we still like her. Like, we know she's crazy. We don't care. We like her. She's going to say whatever she thinks is going on. So
Sounds like she's got a relationship with her constituents. I will say the part of the country where Marjorie Taylor Greene hails from, I drive through that occasionally, and I will note when Joe Biden was president, I saw Trump signs everywhere. When Donald Trump got elected, I saw reelected. I saw Trump signs everywhere. And about I don't know 4 months later, I was driving through that same area. I didn't see him no more. It was a note unless it was nailed high on a tree to where it was just a pain to take it down. So that's interesting. We're going to pause right there and give a shout out to our sponsor this week, which is Gynecology and Obstetrics of DeKalb. I want to tell you, if you appreciate Decaturish, it's people like this company that really are the reason we're here. Gynecology and Obstetrics of DeKalb has supported Decaturish for years. They're an all-female practice. They provide comprehensive care to women in every stage of life, including general wellness, obstetrics, and gynecologic surgery. And they have locations in Decatur and Stone Mountain. You can find out more at goodobgyn.com. If you are in need of their services, please check them out. George, I want to talk to you about school districts. It seems like both of and Decatur and DeKalb County schools are two very different places. They have different sets of problems. Some might say Decatur has what you might call first world problems relative to DeKalb County, but they both seem to be on fire. And it both at some level, well, DeKalb is special because their superintendent got indicted for a whole bunch of stuff, and that's its own separate deal. We've covered that extensively. But the latest drama that appears to be affecting both school districts is redistricting and school closures, and that's driven by declines in enrollment that we've seen post-COVID. A lot of people noped out of public education around COVID. The birth rate declined. What is your read on the situation? Why is all of a sudden two of our local school districts, including DeKalb, which is one of the biggest in Georgia, why does it feel like Decatur isn't quite falling apart? DeKalb feels like it's teetering on that, but they're both on fire. I think we could say generally.
So there's the local and the national. And again, my work at the Guardian has been enlightening in a lot of ways. I actually happen to be working on a story about school enrollment nationally right now.
There you go.
And I'm going to be looking at what's happening locally in that context. Got triggered on it because I read a story in the Miami Herald. Turns out that they've had something like a 20% drop year over year in their enrollment. Miami has the fourth largest school district in the country. They lost 50,000 students. They're starting to close schools all over. And the school administrators say it's because of ICE that they are losing enrollees because the children of undocumented people are pulling their children out because they're afraid that either they're going to get snatched up, or that when they go to pick up the kids, they'll get snatched up, or that they'll use the kids as a mechanism to find them and get snatched up. So we are now looking nationally to see to what degree this is a trend. I think that dynamic may be affecting enrollment locally.
I think you're right.
And you need to look at that school by school. Not all schools have the same number of children of undocumented immigrants or children who are undocumented themselves. That's going to vary.
It's definitely something I've heard anecdotally. Sorry to interrupt, but that is something I've heard anecdotally from our school leadership, is that there is a concern about a lot of students leaving because they don't want to get their families to get deported.
Right. Some of this is also sort of a broader trend that's been happening over the course of just the last few years because of the pandemic. There's been a fundamental increase in the amount of homeschooling and a shift toward private schools and charter schools that are pulling some people out of public schools, but even charter schools are public schools. So, but this is something is happening. We're not 100% sure what it is on enrollment, but we know that it is not localized to DeKalb County. This is a thing that's happening everywhere. And Atlanta's starting to go through it. Gwinnett is starting to go through it. We're starting to go through it. But then you add the other stuff. You drive near Emory right now, and you will see signs for like this question around whether or not Druid Hills High School should be closed or torn down or renovated or what. Um, People will go to war for their local school. Like a lot of folks, particularly in Decatur, moved there. And if you're watching this, you know who you are. Um, you moved to Decatur because it's got the best schools you can find in the Atlanta area, the best public schools. Um, if you're getting your local neighborhood school snatched out from underneath you, there's some fundamental property value issues that start to pop up. Hey, I just spent $700,000 and I am on this house. I am now paying a $3,500 mortgage on. And you're telling me that I'm no longer in the same school zone and that my kid is going to have to, have a 20-minute longer whatever, or the teachers that we were looking, yeah, people will lose their minds.
I am definitely interested to see where DeKalb Schools is going, particularly as they deal with the political fallout, because DeKalb Schools, the school board seems to operate on a different plane of existence sometimes than their constituents. And oh boy, are their constituents mad? They are very, very mad at the school board right now. I mean, people are mad in general at a lot of elected officials right now, but there will be next year there will be school board elections. I think those are going to be more hopping than they usually are. I would not be surprised if some of our current incumbents who voted to hire and extend the contract of Devin Horton decide not to run again because they probably will be in an uphill battle. Just being honest, there are people. Somebody you and I know mutually, George. In full disclosure, George and I have a friendship together outside of all this. We play D&D together. He's my ride or die for sure. But George, somebody that you and I know mutually, who I'll tell you about later, who really lovely guy, not somebody I would envision running for office.
So I know who you're
Contacted me.
talking about.
Yeah. Was like, I'd like to run for office, and I was like, guys like that are getting off the sidelines.
Yeah, I told him to go run for school board.
Yeah, it's gonna be. So you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I told him that politics is there's a lot more glad handing and fake nice than he's probably up for. But best of luck. We need more people. We're getting towards the end of the show. I don't want to keep anybody longer than I plan to. George, want to get your take real quick. Sasha Swinson, transgender woman, used the Tucker bathroom. Apparently, a police officer confronted her about her bathroom use. There's an internal affairs investigation. I don't want to drop something controversial and ask you to talk about it in 30 seconds, but let me drop something controversial and ask you to sum it up in 30 seconds. And try not to get each of us canceled if you can.
I will say this: we're still DeKalb County right now is actually still trying to figure out its police chief situation.
That's right.
And I think this is going to be a test for the county and for whoever it is that's going to end up leading here around how do you manage this kind of problem. Because if they manage it, if this is ham-fisted and very public and very ugly, then it will reflect poorly on the county. And I am actually watching this to see the managerial moves of the county's police department, whether or not they can take something that is, and I'm just going to say it, a statistically probable event. Like you take enough police officers in enough different counties, and somebody is going to make this mistake. So I'm not like, yes, this was bad, should not have happened. But the petri dish of DeKalb, I want to see if they can lead their way out of it.
So far, the response has been I don't want to call it wholesome, but it's about what you would want. I mean, even Sasha Swinson, who's a real nice lady, we talked at length. The response is everyone's concerned. Nobody has dismissed her. Nobody has. The county's taken it seriously. The county's issued a statement. So, if you are the kind of person like you and I are, where you think everybody should be treated with respect, no matter who they are or what they believe. You're sort of heartened by that response. And I will say, to the people contacting me and dropping me lines and complaining about this, there are too many people who have their lives wrapped up in hating on transgender people, and y'all respectfully get a life. They're people just like you and me. They deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And if you can't get behind that concept, I do not know what to tell you. We live in America. As long as what you do ain't hurting me, I don't care what you do. And that's just the way I look at it. George Chidi, local journalist, writes for The Guardian. George, tell us about, real quick, some of the things that you're working on and where people can find what you're doing.
So I write for The Guardian, but I also write a local newsletter called the Atlanta Objective, which comes out intermittently when I've got something to say. The things that I'm looking at right now involve both the DeKalb's school system, like I was describing. I'm also looking really closely at corruption issues in the city of Atlanta. Things are starting to pick up again in that cycle. I have my eyes on a contract at the Atlanta airport that's just a canary in the coal mine. I don't know if what I'm looking at is an act of corruption or just bad management or maybe nothing at all. But a bidder for a contract won the contract, even though the city would be paying that contractor 50% more than the next highest bid. It's really difficult to understand contracting at the city. My job as a journalist at this point is simply to explain it. All right, here's how a contract works in Atlanta, and this is what you need to look for if you think something smells funny. That kind of journalism, that's the sort of thing that I'm trying to do. And if you see something that you think is a little shady, you need to call the both of us.
Me, DeKalb County specifically. George Chidi,
Right.
For anything. We're mostly DeKalb related, but yeah. Although we have City of Atlanta too, so it's not.
You do. The other thing I'm looking at is sort of progressive politics in sort of the era of Trump. There are school board races that are still yet to be resolved in Atlanta. But there's also this sort of general, like the Mamdani effect. Like, to what degree are we going to start seeing that happen here in the municipal elections and the city, in the state representative elections and all the rest of it? Something is happening. Like, we could see it in the election results. Something is happening. We just need to drill down.
George Chidi, thank you so much for all the wonderful work that you do. Y'all, if you don't follow this man, he's a quality follow. It's still, are you still doing Twitter, or did you nope out of Twitter?
I got out of Twitter. I am no longer.
You noped out of.
Yeah, Blue Sky. Neon flag at Blue Sky.
Neon flag at Blue Sky.
Follow Decaturish. Decaturish is the infrastructure to look at local problems and local issues unlike any other local publication I can find in the country. There are damn few local reporters that are getting it done like Decaturish. Subscribe.
Thank you. We have a wonderful team, assistant editor Zoe Seiler, reporter Jim Bass. We're part of the Appen Media Group now. I really can't say enough good things about all of our team. Debbie English, who handles sales and marketing, Jade, Mike, Hans. We're part of the Appen Media Podcast Network, and you can hear this show day after on the Appen Media Podcast Network. It's called the Decaturish Download, wherever you stream your podcast. Decaturish Download is going to be back every Thursday, barring holidays and vacations, right here on Decaturish Download. Is going to be right here on the Decaturish Facebook page, Decaturish YouTube. Please check it out. Again, thank you all so much for joining us today. George, thank you for your time. And we're going to see everybody here next week at 7 p.m. on the Decaturish Download. Have a good evening, everybody.